Good evening and welcome to the April 5th, 2021 Board of Commissioners work session. The board did meet twice in executive session since our last regular meeting. We met on March 22nd to discuss a real estate matter and again on March 29th to discuss a real estate and personnel matter. Chief Viola, I wonder if you would lead us in the pledge.
Why don't you do it?
Pledge allegiance to the flag,
United States of America, to the republic
which stands
under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next week we're going to be having a proclamation by Commissioner Quinn for her 100th birthday. And are there any commissioners' updates tonight?
The Finance Committee will be getting together sometime in the next couple of weeks to discuss potential infrastructure money from Washington.
Thank you. Township Solicitor update. I think, Mr. Byrne, there's two issues.
Sorry, I have my mood on. Yes, I did send around a memo concerning the utilities and, whether we could place a moratorium or anything on those. The conclusion basically was I didn't think we'd be able to put a moratorium on. We may have some control under our police power that I set out more in those memos. So if you have any other questions with that, it's probably better for me to discuss that with you in an executive session. It would be my suggestion rather than doing questions and answers here on that subject. And then the second matter was on the Covanta matter down in Chester and the resolution. You've probably seen late today, there was a email that came to us from a representative of Covanta. I did look into the aspect of whether there was any borrowing that was going to be affected. Mr. Holmes asked about, and I found that there was no borrowing. With respect to Mr. Quinn's questions, that's $1 million question, I guess, is, what are we going to do if we don't use Covanta? Would it then require, there's really only two ways to get rid of waste now, and that is through turning it into steam or by taking it to a landfill. And if you truck it to a landfill, where would the landfill be? And how many more trucks would you need? Would you be doing something that hurt you rather than help you with respect to that? Would it be more expensive? Would it be more pollution? I mean, I don't know the answers to all that, but they're all the questions you really need to ask yourself. And as I said, we did get a nice summary from Mr. Myers, I believe it is, from our EAC, Noel, and he gave the one position, and in that memo that you got today, there is a second position. So before you made a resolution, I think I would want to get it straight in everybody's head as to, where we're going with this and what we want to do. Maybe close the, tighten up the resolution a little bit in light of the two memos.
Dr. Hart, if you're speaking, you're muted.
Okay.
We're unable to hear you.
Okay. The EAC was working today on an update of their resolution. They wanted to clarify that what we had received today from the company was in response to a resolution that the Chester group had passed, which was significantly different than the resolution that our EAC had recommended. But that resolution is not quite complete, and they will send it out to us during the week. I think it further clarifies their position, which is that the asking the Delaware County Board to look at all aspects of things and to do a study of maybe sign a shorter term contract, which should not tie in the county to putting as much waste in and have a lower minimum. But we'll get the resolution from them later in the week. Any other comments? Next on the agenda is an update by Brian Barrett from Parks and Rec.
Yes, we were approached by Commissioner Wexler, who had been approached by residents of the 9th Ward about renaming the football field at Steel Field for Coach Jim Stewart, who had coached at St. Dot's for 50 years, longtime resident of the township in the Pilgrim Garden section. So we brought the matter to the Parks and Recreation Board, which voted at their March meeting to unanimously support the measure of naming the football field at Steel Field after James Stewart. So now that issue will be, for this to happen, it has to be voted on by the Board of Commissioners. So that's why it's on the agenda.
I'd like to offer my appreciation to the Parks and Recreation Board for the unanimous vote. I think, as they pointed out, if we're going to name a park or facility after anybody, this gentleman certainly meets and exceeds that criteria for anything that we would do. So I appreciate their looking into it, their examination of it, and their vote. So thank them very much for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Police Department crime update. Chief Viola.
Thank you, Commissioner. 20 criminal arrests for March, 2 juvenile arrests, 88 traffic citations, 15 non-traffic citations, 67 written warnings, and 222 parking tickets. There was a robbery attempt at the Giant store on 323. A person got in their car. A suspect ran out of the store, was a shoplifting suspect, and ran to this person's car and attempted to open the car door. She had locked the doors when she saw him coming, and the suspect ran away. We think that he possibly confused the cars and tried to get into what he thought was another car. We had a burglary in the unit block of Pinzon Avenue. A large amount of cash was taken when the residents were not home. They have a business in Philadelphia, and we feel that they were targeted because of their habits going back and forth. The actors got in through a second floor window. The investigation is continuing with the cooperation of Philadelphia Police. 329, 116 Township Line Road. Somebody tried to pry open the Chase ATM machine without any success. The camera did not get a picture of the person because it was done in the rear of the machine, so they did not get in there. 2 motor vehicle thefts, 600 block Ashurst Road. Victim reports he went out, started his car in the morning. It was an older car. Went in the house while it was warming up. Then he has camera footage from his house where an older model gray Jeep Cherokee pulled up. Male jumped out of the car from the passenger side, ran down, got in the car, and took off at a high rate of speed. The vehicle was later recovered at the Overbrook section of West Philadelphia. U-Haul, another stolen vehicle reported there. That's just a transit van that wasn't returned. And then we just won a theft from an auto, and that was in the unit block on Myrtle Avenue, and a subject was arrested. That's my report, Commissioner.
I'm going to meet with you in the next.
You're muted.
There we go. And Chief, I'm going to meet with you over the next week or so. I think Steve too, to discuss the issues up at Bailey Park with speed meeting and stuff.
Yes, that's correct. You'd pick the date myself, and I believe that Commissioner D'Amelio is going to be involved with that too, and Deputy Chief Hagan, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Brian,
actually,
you're going to be with that on that also?
I'm sorry?
Brian.
Right,
Yeah.
Commissioner, you're going to be with Bailey Park. Commissioner D'Amelio, you're going to be involved with that, the meeting with the residents there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I think myself, Connor, and Mario, we all share that. But the police committee should meet to discuss exactly what's happening and what the police can do to alleviate some of the concerns that those neighbors have, and they're legitimate concerns. You know, I know that the police do go there from time to time, but I think as the warmer weather's coming in, it's going to rear its ugly head even more now.
Yes.
So I would think that maybe next week, you want to do that? Can you give me a time, John, where we can, next week?
Yeah. I'll
Chief.
contact you tomorrow for Connor and Seal. I'll send you some dates. We'll look good for us.
Yeah.
We'll see what works for all of us.
I know you guys are working, there's another street in my ward I think you guys are working on, so if I can get an update on that too. I think it was about speeding. That woman had a camera.
Yes, we're in fact, we're doing a traffic survey. Should be done this week.
Yeah, I mean, with the warmer weather coming here, you know, and the kids playing out in the street, I think we need to be a little more aggressive in slowing down traffic somehow. Somehow, I know it's not easy, John. I know you guys are, you know, trying your best, but we need to show, I think, that we're, at least in areas or streets, John, that you may know of, they're far worse than others.
Yes.
You know, cut-throughs mostly, I guess.
Most of them are cut-throughs, correct.
And you know what I tell residents, and I don't know if my colleagues will agree with me, but a lot of the speeding are the neighbors that live around there.
That's correct.
Right.
You know, Commissioner, whenever we have a meeting with the constituents and we get complaints about traffic and speeding, and we always joke with them that usually one of the first people we stop and give a ticket to is somebody who lives in that street. So they're just as guilty a lot of times also. But yes, we're always more than glad to help. The summertime is coming, and we'll work something out.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, next week on the agenda there's 5 tax settlements with stipulation of counsel. I think we've been having these the last few months. There's also the second reading of a traffic ordinance on parking on Vernon Road and a stop sign at the intersection of Linwood and Maryland. Also the second reading of a civil service regulation change. This is the change eliminating the condition of requirement for the Act 120 training. Anybody have any comments?
Yeah, Commissioner, this is something that, again, want to remind the board and the public that came out of and I think Commissioner Quinn will agree because you were there. I don't know who else was there. I forget who's on the committee now because you became president. You were there. Came out of the police committee meeting to make improvements to try to at least try to acquire qualified applicants from every background, not worry about the academy at this time. So I think it's a good step. Thank you, Chief, by the way.
And we have reached out and posted that in various universities, as far as Cheney University on down. It's been in the Inquirer, the Daily Times. We're going to put our message board out front. So we're getting the message out. Joe Hagan's put it out on the social media, and all the police academies also have the posting in their current academy classes. So hopefully we'll get a bigger draw this time. And I think with eliminating the academy, because that's really a big hit for somebody, especially somebody who went to college, they have to spend another $5,000 or $6,000 in 6 months of their lives that they have to, with the hope of getting a job. So this will open it up, I think, a great deal.
Agree, thank you. Also be a first reading of a traffic ordinance, the Railroad Lane and Walnut Lane area parking restrictions. We will again have the resolution in regards to the Delaware County waste stream, City of Chester incinerator. We could have a discussion now. Again, I think there was going to be a slightly revised resolution. Anybody have any comments at this point?
Do we have to have resolution?
They're voting on it actually tonight. The EIC. The EIC was who sent us the initial resolution. On the EIC, there was the Cobanta spokesperson. Yeah, that's the only thing.
But have we gotten advice in response other than what?
Can't hear, Larry.
Sorry. Have we received anything from our solicitor besides what he just told us a minute ago?
No. Okay, the next resolution is amending the resolution on the polo field on the walking path. Barrett, do you want to comment on that?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we had put in a resolution last month for asking DCNR, Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, for a grant of $120,000 to build a walking path at Polo. And after doing more investigation and getting prices for a pervious path, we had spoken with Commissioner Lewis and neighbors from the Brentford Civic Association, and they were really eager to make it a pervious path. So the cost was greater, so we're amending it to ask for an additional $40,000. So our request for the grant will be $160,000, and both Haverford Township and Lower Merion will match $80,000. So we're getting a 50% grant, and then Lower Merion's paying 25%, and Haverford Township will pay 25% if we get the grant. So we're just asking for additional funding because the amount for pervious surface as compared to macadam is significantly more, so we needed more money.
Thank you. Any
Mr. President, may I
questions?
ask him a question, not about that specifically, but another matter? Would you
Sure.
mind? Brian, now again, with the warmer weather coming in, more people walking the trails, how is the Darby Creek Trail looking now?
It's doing good. We are also planning some work days, but yeah, I've been doing the trail frequently recently because the weather's nice and I walk my dog there. We are putting more trash cans. Commissioner Wexler had asked about a seat at the end. Some residents had contacted him. We're going to put some seating at the end, maybe make sure there's more dog bags out and be more conscious that there's more trash because of the volume of people. We just got a count for March, and March was 3 times more than March count in 2019. So obviously there's a lot more use, but there'll be a Darby Creek Trail cleanup by the Darby Creek Valley Association this Saturday morning. We'll have people all along the creek. Well, we won't. Darby Creek Valley Association will have people cleaning up, volunteers cleaning up, and we are planning some work days. That'll be information in our summer brochure about work days. We're going to do both along Darby Creek Trail, Pensy Trail, and along the Caricom corridor.
So Brian, that cleanup is this Saturday?
Saturday, yes.
What time?
It's run by this. It's 9 to noon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on. There will also be a resolution authorizing the change in the filing date, extending the 2020 final estimate and 2021 estimated business privilege and mercantile tax return from April 15th, 2021 to May 17th, 2021, which I think puts us in the same time frame as the federal government and the state returns.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
I do think it's worth talking about this for a minute, just to maybe, while we don't take official action, to see whether anybody has any major problems with it, or to ask Ms. Cuthbertson to explain to us why this is a good idea. I've gotten a couple calls today from folks somewhat frantic about the approaching deadline and that it didn't match the federal government's deadline. So obviously I'm pleased to see this resolution. While we can't act until next Monday, it would be good for people to be assured that this is a filing date extension that we're likely to pass. Ms. Cuthbertson, do you just want to tell us where this came from and why it's important for us to do the extension?
Sure. A lot of taxpayers use forms within their federal return as their source document on how to report their gross receipts. So for instance, a sole proprietor in particular uses a form called a Schedule C in their federal return, and that is the source document that's used to prepare the business privilege and mercantile return. So they can't do their local return until that particular form is completed and in a lot of cases with the extension. We have some taxpayers that that's not completed yet. So as Commissioner Holmes did, I've gotten some calls today. I asked them that it looked positive that the board was going to extend, but they're going to call me back tomorrow after we got a sense tonight. We didn't get a lot of notice from the IRS because they're dealing with a lot naturally, but we want to at least share with the taxpayers that they do have this little breather to get their returns paid and filed till next month.
Appreciate
Certainly
that,
do.
thanks. Yeah, did Kevin say something?
The
I
next
was just going
item,
to say, I certainly think this is something we should do, and we should provide that to the people who are paying these taxes, so that it's consistent with the federal government.
any other comments? Okay, the next item on the agenda next Monday will be the dedication, the renaming of Hilltop Recreation Area in honor of James Stewart. As Mr. Barrett spoke up earlier, I don't know, Commissioner Wexler, do you want to say anything now?
Oh, no, I think it's an honor that's bestowed upon a person, I think, that's truly deserving of this. I think if anybody that knew him or had met him, I think Chief Viola falls into that category as well as I do from the township. But the number of emails and testimonials that I received is in far in excess of about 400 so far. And I think this is just a very fitting tribute. And my plan is to recommend that the dedication will actually occur on Thanksgiving morning at the traditional Turkey Bowl, which usually attracts somewhere between 1,500 and 3,000 people every year to that game. So it's and truly a great honor for a deserving person. So my thanks to the Parks and Rec Board, as well as all the people that have vocalized their support, and all the alumni organizations that he worked with, and organizations and mentoring of people that he did over the years. It's just a great tribute, and it's very fitting and very appropriate for this man. So thank you all.
Bill, I would agree. I got all of these emails, as I'm sure like everybody on the board, and everybody just raved about this guy, and sounded like a great man. So I'm proud
Truly a
to
gentleman.
support it.
Truly a gentleman.
There'll also be one contract award next week. It's the Public Works Department, lighting fixtures for the Darby Road streetscape. And also an appointment finally to the vacancy committee. So hopefully we can get that done next week. Any other commissioners, any comments?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that Chuck is on. Chuck, can you hear me?
I do hear you, Mr. D'Amelio. Yes.
Thank you. I had spoken with Mr. Pannoni, I think, last week, and I just think it's a good idea to update the residents again. I know Mr. Siegel may be getting calls about 476, that area again. We worked on that, and I know that the state was going to make improvements there. And according to Mr. Pannoni, it's still happening. I just want to put that out there again. You know probably more about it than I do, what they're going to do. So just want to remind folks that we didn't forget. I don't think the state forgot, and it is earmarked.
You are correct, Mr. D'Amelio. If you remember, there was a multimodal grant that was applied for by the state of Pennsylvania for some improvements down there, which included the sort of realignment of that whole stretch from North Lawrence Road into the Blue Route to accommodate the traffic getting on the Blue Route. That grant and that design is underway. I believe there's been some meetings with PennDOT, and actually the township staff has been involved too. It's a process very similar, unfortunately, to the CMAQ grant, which was the Westchester Pike adaptive there. It's got to go through numerous reviews and everything like that, but it is underway. As you may know, we are doing that grant on behalf of PennDOT, just because of the fact we have some more institutional knowledge in this area with regard to the traffic and everything. I do not have a time frame on that for you, Mr. D'Amelio, but I can get that for you.
Thank you very much. I just want to make sure, I think Commissioner Siegel would agree that we have to make sure the residents are aware that this is not a dead issue.
The last time I spoke to Mr. Pannoni, it was roughly delayed about 9 to 10 months to a year because of the pandemic, and everything just slowed everything down. So he was estimating next fall as a likely or probable, but that was when I spoke to him probably 2 or 3 months ago.
I will get an update for the board and make sure Mr. Berman's aware of that and informs the board before next meeting, before
Thank you.
next week, I should say.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? I do want to make an announcement that the library board will be doing a presentation at our regular meeting next week on their proposals for renovation at the Mill Road site. So we will get, and all the rest of the commission, some of the commissioners have seen the proposal. Everybody will have an opportunity to view it then, as well as the public. If there's no other, we could adjourn.
So moved.